it help that I get rid of the glare on my head with the hat? Welcome, everyone. It's great to have you into my home. Like many of you, you're probably working remotely, and that's what we're doing. This story begins in the scene of Jurassic Park. And if you remember Jurassic Park, the dinosaur was, the T-Rex was ready to gobble up the people in front of the car and the kids, and it was absolute chaos. When I graduated from college, 1981, I officially call myself a dinosaur. I mean, literally the computer system and programming that we had was light bulbs and punch cards. There was no internet. There was 8-track tape with the advent of a little bit of cassette coming in. So my discipline, where I was schooled in, was economics and business administration, but I always had a love for marketing. So this is intended for you today, and I hope that there's something in my past with my experience, education, and mainly passion that will rub off and help you improve your business, because we're going to take you on a journey today, and that journey is going to be a little bit of a different journey. Most of you don't consider yourselves marketers. I don't know if you do or not, but unfortunately you are. Ever since you were a baby, you wanted ice cream, or you wanted to get fed, or you wanted your way. You learned how to get attention to get what you wanted, which is at the element of marketing. How in the world do you get what you want? How do you present yourself to the consumer? How do you make a compelling story? And so any questions that you have as we go through this, please feel free to ask a question via chat, and hopefully that we go. When I say I hope dinosaurs aren't dead, I don't consider myself dead, because I'm a lifelong learner, and I've just always had the passion to do whatever I can to survive and handle things, even in light of what we have going. So the main areas we're going to talk about is what I call a growth loop. And a growth loop is basically, when you look at marketing, you're looking at the touch points and when a customer interacts with your company. And it's a great discipline for you to look and jump into the customer's perception and look at how they look at things, and then how your company positions itself. So some reason my PowerPoint is not wanting to work, but here we go. So I had a teacher in high school that became very frustrated with me when I was probably 15 years old. And he was an electronics teacher of mine, and he wanted me to stay after class, and he sat me down and said, "Calhoun, you just kind of piss me off." And I go, "Well, geez, I'm sorry about that. What makes you mad?" And he said, "Well, you get the subject, you don't ever crack a book, you understand it, but you don't." Can you hear me? Hello? Oh, is everything okay? I had some weird feedback. You have to have a purpose in life, is what he was trying to say. You had to have a direction. So the very fundamental thing for all of you to do for your company is to take time once a year, preferably about 4 to 5 hours, and look at your mission. What is your mission? What is it? Where are you sailing? What do you see for your company? What is it that you want for your company? Without that destination, you're going to just float along the ocean. You're not going to have a great sense of purpose. The wind and waves will always change your direction as a business. You will always have to learn to adapt. But without having a crystal clear vision of what you want, you're just going to be off to the wrong foot. So what I invite you to do is you look at things from the customer's point of view and their perception, and what is it they want with memorialization? How do they want it? How do they see it in their mind? And most people don't have a clear view of memorialization. They just say, Mom died, I should get a popular term is tombstone, headstone for Mom, I should mark her grave, or Dad. And so it comes out of more of a traditional sense of history of a need. And what's happened to our society is that need has completely changed, kind of like marketing has as a whole. So your most powerful question you're going to have to ask yourself is why. Keep in mind the why all the time. So what is your key purpose? What is your mission? And what is the customer's primary motivation? And I want you to always look deeper than you would normally look. When you look at marketing as a whole, people tend to stay at the shallow end of the pool and not look into the behavioral sciences or the behavioral aspects of marketing. But that's really what you want to get down into the core drivers of what they're doing. So a key belief that I've held, it works for me, might not work for you, but it works for me, is that I believe that we are primarily emotional human beings with cognitive abilities. What in heavens does that mean? It means that I don't care how intellectual you are, how smart you are, whether you're a doctor or an engineer, your primary decision-making ability is emotional. It is not logical. We use logic to justify why we do things, but we are emotional human beings. And those two primary things that I believe that we react to are two main things: the avoidance of pain or the desire for pleasure. And the avoidance of pain is way, way stronger. So take a moment right now and write it into your chat. Can you give me an example of how emotions play out in the world we live in our business, in society as a whole? Can you tell me, just give me one example of where that is happening? And you shouldn't have to look very far. So please share that. I did this fun little, so I found this little fun graph on the internet showing what COVID-19 has done to human behavior. None of us have ever experienced what we're experiencing. And it has just thrown a monkey wrench in society, and it is mainly fear-based, driven, predictable human behavior, what has happened in the last 40 days, 50 days. Our world has been taken upside down. We become fearful and we become, oh my God, I don't want to deal with this. And so it changes behavior. And we get a kind of a herd mentality in marketing. And so on a personal note, I don't drink much. I probably have 2 beers a week. I am now up to 1 beer a day because my growth curve has changed a lot. So what did we do as a company? What did our people do as a company? Well, we sat down, I think it was probably 2 years ago, and we did this exercise, and we came up with a mission statement. Our mission statement is called Creating Everlasting Stories in Stone for People Who Matter by People Who Care. That was about a half-a-day process of 10 people and brainstorming and looking at a mission and saying, hey, where do we go? And that mission statement had 3 main elements to it: creating everlasting stories in stone. What does that mean? It means that we're not selling granite. It means we're telling stories. That's what we do. We help families honor, celebrate, or remember their lives. And we tell stories. We happen to use stone as our medium to tell that story. So that's the first part of our mission. The second part of our mission is for people who matter. What did that mean? That means that our market is for people who love their loved ones, people that happen to love their husband or their wife or their son or their daughter. It is not for those people that don't. They don't really like their brother much, or they don't want to, they just don't have any emotional tie. They could care less. That is not our market. Our market is people who care. People who matter. And then people who care is the story behind us. That's the team of 43 employees that we have working for us. And that our central motivation has to be as caring human beings. That has to be our focus. It isn't about making money. Money is a byproduct. It will naturally occur if we fulfill our mission. So that's how we decided that. As we jump forward to awareness is the very first step in the marketing thing. And awareness is, how in the world does a customer get to know that they even need a memorial? Well, obviously, maybe there's a death. How does your marketing help them find a solution? What are the key drivers for that? And then how do you introduce that tactfully? So please mute if you can on your screen, because I'm getting some feedback, and use your chat feature if you've joined in.
There we go.
Awareness is basically is twofold. One is at need. Somebody has died, and how do they become aware of your company? And number two is advanced planning. How in the world, if I was to pre-plan this, do I become aware of it? Is it a lawyer? Is it a cemeterian? Is it an insurance agent? But there are the touch points of how they would get in touch with you. So you want to track how your customers hear about you and how they learn about you, and you want to learn about your key influencers. And with that comes a little bit of supply and demand. Only 1% of our population dies a year. We're not even at 1%. And therefore, the need for at-need memorialization is a very, very small segment of the overall population. And the life cycle that you or I are going to be facing a family is about once every 14 years, a family will have a death. So when you think about our business trying to build up a referral, repeat customer base, it's a very difficult business to do that because we have such a long product cycle. We're not like a car company where you're trying to sell it every 2 years or 3 years to buy a new car. So think about supply and demand, and whether you want to be a niche builder or you want to be marketing to the masses. But marketing to the masses is going to give you much broader appeal. So I think of human behavior as a bell-shaped curve. And on the extremes of the bell-shaped curve are divergent behaviors. Think of politics are kind of that way. I like to try to market to the mass, the 80% in the middle. It's just more profitable. You get more traction that way. But there are people within this industry that are extremely gifted. I'm thinking of Scott Lucan or John Scott down in Texas, who deals with just the Scottish trade. Charlie Hunt, those type of people have such skill at not only creating, but at building. They could almost charge a premium price for their product and have a very small business, but a very thriving business, because there wouldn't be enough demand for those people. So just think of the wow factor. You always want to create wonder, an opportunity, and a want. So on every one of our contracts, we monitor how we hear everybody. We have a little ticky bop on our contracts, whether it's past customer referral. And what you're trying to do here is you're trying to measure what you actually know, but you're actually looking for a deeper solution. You're looking for nonverbal instead of verbal responses, but you're trying to be kind of a detective. And so our data with internal company is this is how we get most of our business. Most of our business is 50 to 60% of it comes from past customers or referral. It is by far our biggest driver. So our word of mouth or our integrity is everything to our particular company. It's because that's how you're going to get to know us. Now we have an advantage is that we've been around since 1898. I wasn't around then, but we have a long business tradition and a company that has a good market share, so we do have a lot of history behind us. This other part, internet, is obviously growing. There's a thing called the Net Promoter Score, and a Net Promoter Score is an indication of how likely is somebody going to refer their business to you from an existing customer. So in last year, we surveyed 499 of our customers. This was our retail customers where we have showrooms, not our external agents, but internal agents. And we had a 73% response rate, but we asked 5 main questions. Obviously, you see that our Net Promoter Score of 9.89 is fantastic. That means that 9 or 10 that people will become an advocate. Well, there's an old marketing thing that I learned that said if you piss off one family, that family will tell 12 to 14 people. Don't go buy from them. Don't ever go back. But those who are happy will only tell 2 or 3 people. So to build a business based on reputation, referral, and word of mouth is insanely hard. But I would suspect most of you actually built your business that same way. So it gives you an idea. Our lowest score, 9.51, was on communication. That's still a great score, but it tells you the truth about human behavior. Communication is always hard. We also try to get an idea over history of how in the world how are they hearing from us? Advertising, mail, phone book, etc. The only thing we don't do is TV, but we pretty much do most all mediums and use a lot of different professional companies to do that. Most our content is internal, but we do use external sources. So that gives you kind of an indication of where it's going. And as a result of that knowledge, we've dropped out of using phone book advertising almost anywhere. Did that several years ago. So a customer comes now, they learn about you, and now they're going to research you. They're going to look between one company and the next. And now you got to look at your tools in your toolbox. What in the world do you have, and what do they need to make a good decision? So that's research. And think of the senses. You want to appeal to visual, auditory, smell. All those things are all how people learn, and everybody learns, reacts differently. So you have to look at that. So the biggest thing that you have to offer anybody, I would suspect to you, is either your knowledge, your skill, or simply your desire to help. And this one that in sales always works better than anything is show me somebody that loves what they do, and I'll show you someone who's successful, because passion at the end of the day, enthusiasm for getting up in the morning and loving what you do is the key. If you know what you'd love to do and you do it well, you will do well. But look at all your tools and what you have. Then when you come to yourself and the customer goes through that phase, they then go to compare. What is your company offer versus somebody else's company? Why should I go see Katie, or why should I go see Kelly versus somebody else? And that is going to come down to the human behavioral aspects, not so much the quality of your building and how clean. All those things make a difference, but the individual makes all the difference in terms of how someone feels when they come to you. So marketing becomes greater than materials. It comes greater than the fancy design book or the nice showroom you have. Marketing is how you pull off the human aspects of what you do and how do you speak to that customer. So in the Old West, you had these characters that were in every old Western movie, and they were snake oil salesmen. They had the amazing elixir. You had a old trench coat on, and you'd sell this potion that would save your hair or maybe some illness or whatever. You do not want to ever go down the road of being a charlatan and selling false promises and snake oil. There's enough of those people in the world. You can see it every day in business. But value is a perception. So what does that mean? It means it's a perception of how the customer views you. It's how they see you. So that perception is determined by them, not by you. And there are different ways that you can do that. You have to look at product differentiation. You got all this noise, you got all these people out there marketing, whether it's cars, autos, or monuments. And just simply look at what you do in relation to everybody else and kind of determine, is it from a customer point of really no advantage, or is it fool's gold? It's just false promises, or what is your key drivers? So you think of Apple, simplicity, beauty, high-tech efficiency is kind of what you think of when you do Apple, and they've had years of marketing and they're great at it. Amazon came along and changed the complete paradigm of marketing. Why? Distribution. They learned how to deliver a product that you did not have to leave home from, and they've totally put out a lot of people out of business. So here's a helpful tool for you. Hire a secret shopper. You got to hear me here because this is delicate. You do not want to pay too much attention to what your competitors do. It's kind of a waste of energy, but you do want to do it once a year. And what you want to do is you want to benchmark yourself against your competitors. You want to see what they're doing. And an organization like MBNA is phenomenal for you to network across North America with other friends and other dealers, find other dealers about your size and say, what do you do? How do you approach this? And you will learn insights, and it's a great sharing thing. But benchmarking is basically looking at your peers, looking at how they do things, and then being equal to or better than the best of them. And that's a good practice once a year. We secret shopped everybody in our geographic Minnesota area, hired somebody to do it. And what we found, and I don't know if anybody's on Minnesota here, what we found is the lack of education that the average monument company provided families was quite astounding. They just really were given a design book and very little instruction. So it's a great learning tool, but learn from your own surveys, your own listening, and for God's sakes, take action and quit talking. You can sit around a boardroom or you can sit around and talk about things all day long. Just do it and learn from that. So marketing is a little bit like baseball, that if you become a 300 hitter, you're great. And if you don't believe that, look at Hollywood. They spend all this money on big fancy movies, millions of dollars. The average budget, I think, is $30 million to put out a movie, and more of them bomb than fail. Super Bowl commercials, et cetera, et cetera. You're just as gifted and have the ability that they do. So one of the things that we do because of our mission is we develop the story guide, and the story guide is an interview tool that we use when a family comes in and sees us. It helps guide the agenda, and it helps make sure that we're paying attention to their story. That's just one idea. So then when a customer goes through this growth loop, then they got to decide, am I going to buy from Pamela or am I going to go buy from Keith? Keith's a nice guy, but Pamela is better looking. What do? I am going to look for advice. I'm going to look for counsel. I'm going to look for advice to do that. So this choice thing, what you want to do is you want to build trust. You want to build respect that I'm actually hearing and listening to the family, and you want to make it a safe environment. Safe environment. Why? Because we're dealing with a subject of death, loss, and love. And I want to have an environment where people can be open-hearted and share. Share meanings of love, share meanings of care, but in order for that to occur, they have to feel safe and trusted. So think of risk reversal and roadblocks. You want to eliminate as many roadblocks as you can, and roadblocks are impedances to making a decision. Most companies use some form of a la carte approach. You know, so much for a family name on back, so much for engraving, so much for delivery and installation. Think out of the box. How in the world can you package and give more value in your product instead of less value? How can you enhance the experience and eliminate the roadblocks? Sears in the 50s, if anybody's old enough to remember this, Chip might remember this, they built their whole company on satisfaction guaranteed or your money back. And it was a thriving business, and they dominated the market. What happened, some bright people came along with certain letters behind their names and education, and they decided that they knew better, and they went away from that core mission and that core purpose, and it got diluted, and then they hired new executives, and they're out of business, I believe, today. So this is a very evolving concept and a definite a balancing act. When you get to the next part of this would be evaluation. So now I got to decide what I've bought. I've decided to buy from Keith, and now I got to see how Keith pulls it off. Is my monument going to be everything I expected it to be? And again, this is where the guy in the plant or the truck driver delivering the product or the accountant doing your accounting work or the designer behind the scenes plays a role in marketing, because it is not in the words, it's in your actions as a company that are going to be your evaluator. It is how well do you actually pull off what you say you do? Do your words match your actions? So you go into a Ritz-Carlton, or you go into a Hilton, or you go into some fancy restaurant, and we all have examples that have been horrific examples of people pulling off poor performance. It's very rare today to be wowed by a business. You know, there should be hundreds of people on this call today, and there's not. There's a good audience of you, but it speaks to you for taking the time and the investment to be here. because it means you want to learn. You want to wrestle with these things and you want to build a stronger business. Why? Well, you want to feed your family, but you also want to know what that mission is and you're taking care of it. So think of a doctor in poor bedside manner. Poor bedside manner would be, he might save your life, but he or she is just an idiot that doesn't have the ability to fully grasp that this is my loved one. And so you have this level of engagement of monument companies because we're in a caregiving business. We are not much different than that policeman or fireman or that mortician or that doctor or that nurse. We are actually in that caregiving field. So the lowest end would be just pity. Sympathy a little bit above that. Well, I care about your suffering. Well, when I've traveled North America and I look at most of the monument industries, advertising or marketing, the very common thing they do is offer some sympathy. You can elevate that, go beyond that. You want to get to at least empathy, and higher than that would be compassion. Because compassion is with purpose. I am trying to help a person move beyond grief to a different paradigm where they can, we're not here, we're not going to bring anybody back to life. What we do is actually very inadequate, actually almost impossible to sum up a person's life in a story in stone. It's just absolutely next to impossible. But there's something noble in trying it. There's something wonderful about doing that. And there's something that I believe so fervently in my heart that that's what we do. And I'm so connected to that. So get into that mission and purpose. So, love, there's a quote that says, love is just grief with no place to go. So we get to COVID-19, March 16th, a month ago. Are we essential? Do we stay open? Do we close? What does your governor say? What does our governor say? And I hope the heck you hold yourself in the highest degree of esteem. I hope you take what you do as sacred and purposeful. And I so hope you perceive yourself as essential, absolutely necessary, extremely important. And why I say that is because we are in emotional business where there is love, there is loss, there is grief. And therefore, you have to aspire, at least have intent to walk toward a higher plane of being there emotionally for families. Ooh, God, emotions are difficult. I don't know, I want to go there. Well, then go back to the sandblast. Be involved in marketing in the sandblast. But if you're going to be a frontline person in sales and marketing, for God's sakes, have a heart, have compassion, and care about what you do. And so it's very vital that you learn emotional languages and learn to be better at it, and you are essential. So as we come down the road of all these different things, I'm going to come into the last stage of this before we open up to questions and feedback, and that's what I call advocacy. And advocacy is after I've sold it, how in the world do you get people to come back to you? And how do you build this thing of word of mouth? And with this topic, I have to be 100% truthful with you and open-hearted. I sucked at this. I have a great caring and loving soul as I perceive it. I'll do almost anything for anybody. You can ask me what to do and I'll do it for you. Don't ever tell me what to do or I'll tell you to go to hell. But my biggest nemesis is just this desire to be liked and wanted and needed. And that left me very, very vulnerable to criticism, people making fun of me, people not understanding my intentions. And as a result, the guy who was my worst champion was me, the guy in the mirror. I was a great friend and great person to our customers or my friends, got many of them, and I'm blessed beyond. But the guy who I was not good was me. So I picture this dog because I had 3 English Springer Spaniels, and the learning curve of this personally didn't really happen to me until the last probably 4 or 5 years in my life. I'm 61, so mid-50s. And that was, if I'm going to learn how to be an advocate for not only myself or my company or who I'm around, I have to learn to be comfortable with me. And I have to learn to love myself, so to speak. And I put it together by visioning myself as my dog. If I had a dog, I would pet it, I'd feed it, I'd take care of it. If it needed to go to the vet, I would take it to the vet. So I had to start treating myself that way, that I had enough self-worth and enough self-dignity that I would treat myself at least as well as I would treat my dog. And so that became a very hard language for me to learn. And as that learning took place, because I'm also an author and wrote a book, I just had a hell of a hard time with self-promotion. I had no problem promoting the company, but speaking up about me would have been a difficult thing for me. So I did a little research real quick before I spoke. Katie asked me to do this, and I went around the country and I kind of typed in a bunch of monument company names on Google. And I noticed that so many people don't even have a profile out on Google, their business profile, which is free on Google My Business, and they're not feeding their network at all in terms of referrals. So that would be a very first start. Go out there, get your business out there, learn how to feed your referrals, learn how to help. Now, this is only honestly, with intent in the last year of working at the advocacy stage. Last year and a half, I've really started focusing in on capitalizing on our number one strength, which was word of mouth and referral. How do I capitalize on it? How do we capitalize on it as a business? So Warren Buffett, my good friend Brandon would love this quote. It says, it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. So true. Absolutely so true, that your integrity as an individual, and believe me, it's hard to always do the right thing and do it when no one's watching. I would like to tell you that's easy. That isn't always easy to do the right thing when no one's watching. Working from home in the last 40 days, I've had easily 2 days where I've been downright depressed because I'm a people person. I love seeing you folks. But working by my lonesome with my wife teaching in the background, it gets hard, and you've got to keep your bobber up, and you've got to keep your attitude up, and you got to keep going. So I use the principle of leverage. When we go to set a monument, we use leverage a lot to lift this heavy object. Within your companies, you have some amazingly talented people. And all of them are going to see life uniquely and differently, and they're all going to bring to bear different talents. The kick the kicker here is for you to recognize that, allow for that, and create opportunity so that everybody is contributing in some way to your marketing of your company and how it fits in. There's nothing greater than a customer writing us a note and telling us that one of our setting crew was just phenomenal, or maybe it was a designer that took that extra 15 minutes and did something really unique and creative, or maybe it was just a simple cup of coffee, a little act of kindness when people aren't watching. But it's a team sport. We all have different responsibilities in the company. We all have different things to do, but try to build that culture where your mission is fully understandable by everybody in your company. We also started a care program, and a care program called Customer Advocate Rewards Experience. And so this was our first attempt at this. Two people in our company, Willie and Nicole, really championed this. And it was a way for us to give $50 off to a family coming in and referring to us. But it was also another way that we could give $50 to that person that referred us, that referred that person, or to support their charity. We didn't want to come across self-serving, so that was the hard marketing thing of the care program. It's ever evolving. We're changing the program as we speak, and it kind of improves as it goes. So in summation, when we get through this, without a plan and a direction, you're not going to get very far. Fat and lazy is no way to go through life, is what Dean Wimmer said in Animal House to, I think it was Blutowski. You gotta have a reason and a purpose. Like Tom Steinke, that teacher that took me aside and said, Calhoun, you got more to offer here than most people. You're smart. Just for God's sakes, get some direction. Get some direction. Take the time to plan and reevaluate what you're doing and how you're doing it, and look at whatever anybody else is doing and learn from it. Adjust and improvise as needed. I prefer to do things by not thinking them out too long. I tend to be very reactionary and very from the gut. I turn around and I trust my intuition a lot because it's my life experience. I figure my subconscious has already pulled that all together, and so I'm just going to trust my subconscious. So I'm not too worried about making a dumb decision, because if I make a dumb decision, I can quickly realize it was a dumb decision and adjust it. So there's no such thing as a bad decision to me. It's you've got to learn from the decision and move forward. So I prefer action instead of just talking about it. And you learn. That's all I can tell you is constant ever learning. So every 4 years we redo our design books. We redo almost anything that have. So just think of walking in a direction with intent, stay true to your mission, and then finally, faith. How does faith play into this? I don't understand for the life of me how no one can have faith, whether it's in a higher power in God, or faith in their spouse, or faith in their kids, or faith in their coworkers. To me, that would be a hollow, empty life. Faith is not something provable. It is something that is a belief that you have a knowing that it will all work out. So I always say that you got to have the faith, faith in our country that we're going to pull through this, faith in your company that you're going to pull through this, faith in your family that we're going to pull through this. These are difficult times. There's going to be a loss of business. We're going to lose colleagues in our industry. But you folks, I got faith in. Why? You didn't have to be here today. You could have done a million different things, and you chose to invest in you. And, you know, maybe one dinosaur that's still not dead can help you in that passion thing or purpose. I'm all in. So 1981, St. John's University, marketing. This was an image that was popular at the time. It was an advertisement for Bose. Chip, you remember that? Called the Blown Away Man. Back in my day, the Neanderthal days, sound like I'm so old, 61. Marketing was comprised of four main categories: product, pricing, promotion, and distribution. That was our discipline. Dig into each one of those subjects and understand it. Today, it has evolved exponentially because we have the internet and Google and Twitter and all this stuff, Facebook and marketing from every avenue that you know and possible. TV. We had a TV set when I got married. It had 13 channels. We had four networks? I don't know. It was mind-boggling to think of standing here today in front of you and say, yes, we survived that. I survived that. We as a company survived that. We existed. Our company is nowhere near what my father had when he had the company. I have two business partners and I have wonderful colleagues. So what questions can I answer for you? I am officially wrapped up here, and I will free fall it. Just know that everything in markets like throwing a rock in a pebble of water. It's impossible for you not to have an effect. If you think you're not having an effect, you're totally wrong. In my humble opinion, everything you do and everybody on your staff, every little thing impacts everything, and it all has an effect. So chat box is open. If you want to unmute and ask a question, go for it that way. Anyone?
Yeah. And Don, it's in, maybe Perry Giles will chime in here. I see he posted, how often is your gut feeling right versus wrong? You know, how much you rely basically on intuition, you know. Do you do that, or you just do it on hard data?
I do it all the time, and I am insanely gut related. That's out of just forcing myself to avoid not be controlled by fear. So my motivation is I'd rather learn by doing than by thinking. It's my quickest way to get the result I want. So I've learned to discipline myself to do it over and over and over again. And I shouldn't say I don't care about a bad result. I do care, but I know that if I sit and vacillate on something over a longer period of time and think about it, I have been vindicated more times than not. I would say, you know, is it 51% of the time? Hell, I don't know. I make some dumbass, excuse my French, I make some dumbass decisions in my life. But again, they're not really dumb if you learn from them. So that's how I prefer to look at it, Perry, to answer your question directly. Don't try to think about it. Just do it. Anybody else?
Yeah, again, all of you or most of you are muted, so you can unmute yourself if you do have a question or a comment or a reaction to anything that Don is, all the great things he's talked about in the last 45, 50 minutes. So don't be shy, don't be hesitant.
They get no questions.
You left them speechless.
Either that I left them speechless or scared or whatever. One of the biggest, getting back to that fear thing, fear of asking questions, not looking good in front of colleagues, common things.
Soon-ish. You and your dad need to get together and figure out what we're going to do next week for payroll and stuff, because I'm going to call
So
Mary
Bobby's talking.
and give her the lowdown.
He doesn't realize
See
he's
if she needs any information.
not muted. Hey, Bobby.
I just muted him.
So, had the wonderful privilege of knowing most of the people on this. I see a lot of names that I recognize, so it's great seeing you all. I wish the heck we were actually having coffee together instead of via
Excuse
Zoom.
me,
Yeah,
Don.
Don, here's one Katie just posted, and if she wants to elaborate on it, but you know, how did you get the idea to start the story guide? And then Marilyn adds to that, the guide is your copy or family's copy, question mark, and then some, and then Luke adds to it further. Do you always fill out the story guide? So how did you get the idea to start it? Is it yours or your family's? And do you always fill it out with story guide with families, several copies?
The inception of the story guide probably dates back to 1987 when I worked with Ken Reeson. I was up in Canada, and I always been an organizer. I kind of how do you organize the garage, and I came up with the concept of 8 broad categories defining life. You know, how do you take somebody's story and how do you compartmentalize it into boxes to put in the garage? You know, whether it's faith, character and traits, interests and hobbies, blah, blah, blah. And I realized that the industry focused in on 3 all the time. Faith, they focused in on interests and hobbies. So guys got ducks and bucks and fish. Women got flowers. And so interests and hobbies, faith, and the other one was work. Farmers love their dang tractors. And I just became frustrated that if my life comes down to a bloody well tractor, will you please shoot me? I don't want to be defined by a frickin' object. So the most powerful one of those 8 categories is character and traits. So that inception of organizing then developing the document, that just develops over years, but trying to get other people in my head of why I had the dang thing and what it was going, oh my God, that's an evolution in itself, because it is intended to be given to the family. It's intended for the salesperson to do it. We have it on our website. A family can download it. We have it as when you come in that you would sit in an interview process, but it was just basically an agenda-driven professional tool to keep people on task. Salespeople love them to death, but they tend to just do what they want to do. And as they tend to want to do it, they don't always talk about all the different meaningful parts of life. And I just want to make sure that they did. That's all. Makes sense?
The last part answered your question. Is the guide available digitally on the website? And I think I heard you say, Don, it is.
Yes, it is. And it is ours. So, you know, I'm not going to come to Perry Giles' place and realize that he's using it, but you go develop it as you will. But that intent is been developed over many years. And it always, you know, again, like anything, you try to improve it. Anybody else?
Going once, going twice. Oh.
Well, I'm going to leave you with one final thought, and that's that Hollywood movie of Jurassic Park and the dinosaur eating you. In the great life beyond, when we die, my belief is we're going to be together, and we're going to be able to maybe not see each other in the physical sense, but in the spiritual sense we will, that we're all more connected than we're different. I'm a different guy, but I tend to think that we all have a lot of different same ingredients to the soup. So it's been my pleasure. I hope that you found something of it here today. I hope that you can take it with you. And if you have any questions, you know, in the future, or you ponder something in the middle of the night, feel free to jot me a note or an email, or give me a shout. Let's see if we can help you out. It's good to see everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. This has been
Thank you,
excellent.
Don.
Appreciate the 50+ people that participated in it. It's been great.
Thank you.
Thanks.